Former MSNBC host Joy Reid is having a meltdown over her interview with Piers Morgan, accusing him of a race-based ambush. The two engaged in this heated moment. Let's take a look.
I don't think you were fired after all those years because of your skin colour or because you're a black woman. I think you were fired because your show just got increasingly unpopular. It happens all the time in TV. That's why you got let go. Why play the race card?
First of all, I love the fact that your play the race card is your version of the race card. You literally are so fixated on trying to racialize conversations with me, Piers, that I find it actually quite charming.
You racialize more conversations in your tenure at MSNBC than any host in history.
All right, Mark. All right, Piers, because this is your shtick, and I get that this is your shtick.
You racialize everything, Joy. Come on.
I get it, and I understand this is your shtick, Piers. And listen, game recognizes game. I get this is your game.
It's not my shtick.
And the bottom line,
it was your
it
shtick.
Is your shtick, and everyone knows that it is. Piers, we
people got bored with it.
Reid says that her PR team booked her with Morgan to promote her new show. She said that Piers Morgan was not her first choice, but she did agree to do the interview. She says that his team promised a, quote, free-flowing conversation covering several topics in Joy's wheelhouse. She posted a two-part pre-buttal ahead of the interview's release. Let's watch some of that.
And let me actually start just by reminding myself just how thirsty Piers Morgan is. And you'll be forgiven for not knowing who Piers Morgan is. He won the Celebrity Apprentice with Donald Trump way back in 2008 and was considered a journalist working at a time for a British tabloid called the Daily Mirror when the paper was implicated in a scandal for hacking the phones of famous people, though he himself denied involvement. He has become, in this current iteration of his career, a rather thirsty little troll.
Morgan clapped back at Reid on X, writing, "I interviewed Joy Reid last night. It did not go well for Joy Reid. In fact, it went so badly for her that she's already gone public about how terrible it was, and I am. Apparently, I'm obsessed with race and identity politics." Who do you root for here, Niall?
You're putting me on the spot here, Amber. So let me say a couple of things off the bat. I have met Joy Reid, I think, 2 or 3 times, back when she had a weekend show preceding the weekday show. I went on that a couple of times. She was always very nice to me. I mean, we're not friends, but she was nice to me. And at times I did enjoy and have defended here the weeknight show, which I thought was important. Now, I struggle to defend her here, honestly.
Oh, wow.
Firstly, because what Morgan said about the reason for the cancellation of her MSNBC show, I don't think that was a race-related decision. If you look at the ratings, which is what you're always judged on in linear TV, more often than not, they dropped Ari Melber's show preceding hers, and the audience dropped more often than not when she came on the air. There's a finite period of time you can get away with that in cable television. But the bigger problem I have with her objections here is that I just don't love people whining about interviews that they consented to give, knowing broadly what they were getting into. I mean, people know who Piers Morgan is. I've somewhat mixed feelings about him, but I think he's doing well in this show. I actually quite enjoy this current show sometimes. And when you strip away the sort of rhetoric around Joy's objection, her objection seems to be, he asked me about things that I would prefer not to talk about. And I don't find that a very compelling reason to object to interviews. I mean, to be fair, people come on here and you very recently were rigorously questioning a candidate for governor of Ohio. I was doing it with Robbie in the other seat with Marjorie Taylor Greene a short time ago. And to be fair, I don't believe either of those interviewees later complained about the interview. So I don't really endorse her complaints about Piers Morgan.
She's almost suggesting that she was ambushed because she describes that she was looking for this free-flowing conversation about topics that are in Joy's wheelhouse. And I would think talking about the reason why you got fired from your primetime cable show would be in your wheelhouse, particularly since it's something that she herself released a video on shortly after it happened. And she was the one in that video who claimed that she believes she had been fired, at least in part, because the network was not wanting to keep giving this huge platform to a black woman and someone who talked about issues of race. So she did racialize the firing before Piers Morgan asked her about it, which I think is, she kind of got the cause and effect flipped there. And then to release the video claiming, well, you might not know who Piers Morgan is, like, that to me is the giveaway that she really got the short end of the stick here in this exchange, because he is obviously a very famous journalist. The idea that people would not know him and doing this dig about, oh, well, he was on The Apprentice, 15 years ago. Right. You lost me there.
Yeah, I thought that was not one of her finer moments, honestly, because to suggest that people don't know who he is, I was looking at the numbers for that show online, the Piers Morgan Uncensored show online. He's frequently up to more than 1 million views on those videos and often around 500,000. Now, I don't know, I assume that Joy Reid is legitimately upset. I take her at her word to that extent. I also wonder about the fact that she agreed to do the interview with Morgan in the first place to promote her own show. And I wonder, without being too cynical about it, if stoking a row after the event with him continues to draw attention to her show. There's no crime in that. I mean, she's now independent. She's trying to get traction with that show, and seeking attention for it is part of those reasons. But like, in addition to the point about race, she also objected about him bringing up the old blog posts, which were, I think, generally considered as homophobic. That, though I defend her in other ways and think that she put good people on her show often, that obviously was not a great moment for her. These blog posts emerged. She then suggested she had been hacked, but there wasn't really hard evidence that she had been hacked. It raised a lot of questions, and she seems to object to being asked about it. I don't know that there's a lot of validity to that objection.
Yeah, I actually appreciate that he asked about it, because there was never a satisfying conclusion to that saga. Like you said, there were these posts including homophobic comments, but also 9/11 conspiracy theories and some other pretty wacky stuff before she became this big-time MSNBC host. And the explanation that she was hacked sort of just ended all conversation about it. There was never any investigation. There was no accountability for her in regards to, presumably lying about what had actually happened with those posts. And so the fact that she's been able to skate this long with this very spurious explanation, Piers Morgan would be an idiot not to ask her about that.
Yeah, and Piers Morgan's whole show is predicated on the idea that he will ask hard questions, and he has got in hot water or confrontations a lot. I personally appreciate his questioning of a lot of the Israeli government spokespeople who have appeared in that show, which has been fierier than I think we're accustomed to seeing on American television. But more broadly, you and I have talked about this in a number of different contexts. It is important for there to be some level of adversarial questioning of people in the public eye. Joy Reid knew what she was getting into. I do get that in her case, and in the case of other prominent black commentators, I think there's a lot of validity to the idea that some of the criticism of them is racialized, particularly in the sort of online swamps where there's just often completely noxious stuff thrown at them. But to suggest that she was pulled from the MSNBC lineup for racial reasons, I don't think the evidence supports that.
Yeah, and it just, the other thing about this and Piers' approach to these interviews is this is pretty common in British journalism.
Right.
The British broadcasters do like to ask very pointed, tough questions. Andrew Neil, people might recall his sort of famous interview with Ben Shapiro, where he kind of ate Ben Shapiro's lunch, and that's just really the posture of a lot of these TV presenters. And Piers Morgan, I disagree with him on a lot of issues. I'm sure we'd have a great debate about Second Amendment policy and guns, but he's also contrary to some of those interviews with the Israeli officials, also vigorously defended Israel in some cases. So he's not a right-wing figure by any means. He has a lot of varying opinions that I think actually make him interesting, right? Because he gives this impression that he's kind of an independent thinker and sort of follows where things go. And I appreciate that.
Absolutely. No, I think it's good to test people out in that way.
Next up on Rising, bad news for Stephen Colbert. His late night show's getting canceled. We'll be right back.